everyone, it's Darby from rejoiceandcreate.com. Thanks for stopping by today. Well, I have a very unique project for you today, and is created by doing some diagonal scoring. And it creates this really fun box where you have this box that the flaps fold in and the two long flaps come together to create a very unique closure. I used a bamboo skewer and some hole punches strategically to weave it in and out and keep it closed, and then decorate it as I wanted to. Now this one is decorated for Mother's Day, and I did use some just basic pink cardstock, and I think this one's Blushing Bride, and just did some tone-on-tone stamping with a big floral pattern. And I think it turned out rather pretty. I have another version which is Just Because I use the sentiment God wanted to brighten up the whole world, so he made you. So it's a bit of an encouragement, or it could be a birthday as well. And I decorated this one with some lace butterflies that I had as well. This was done with a plain cardstock, and I just decorated it with some liquid pearls. Now, Mother's Day is coming up, but so is Father's Day eventually, so I thought I'd try my hand at a masculine version. And this is what I came up with. I finished off the top a little bit differently by cutting it straight across and using a 3/4 inch hole punch to make a little bit of a, kind of utility handle. And I also colored the skewer with a Sharpie marker. I was going for black, but my black markers all seemed to walk away. I don't know if that happens at your house. So I used a dark gray Sharpie and then used a little bit of a masculine greeting. Now what's different about this one is I actually embossed the front flap and the back flap. So let's go ahead and get our 12 by 12 up and we'll get started. Alright, so we're starting with a piece of 12 by 12 inch cardstock, and for this project you really need something that is cardstock weight, but you can use patterned cardstock if you want to. And because I couldn't figure out a way to be able to score this on any of the tools I had easily, I just went ahead and did some diagonal scoring with my ruler and a pencil. The biggest thing you have to do first is to make a diagonal line in pencil on the inside of your cardstock, what will be on the inside of the box, from corner to corner on this diagonal as well as that diagonal. Alright, so now that I've got both of my diagonals marked, I'm going to do some marking with my ruler. So go ahead and get a ruler, and on one of your diagonals make a mark that is 3.5 inches from one of the points on your diagonal. So line your 0 up and make a mark 3.5 inches. And they can be very light. I'm making it a little bit darker just so you can see it. On the opposite one, also make a mark at 3.5 inches. So I've got the 3.5 inch marks. All right, so now on the opposite diagonal, on the other diagonal I should say, we're going to make 2 marks. We'll make one mark at 5.5 and one mark at 8. Do that on the other side of this diagonal as well. All right, so we're going to start with our 3.5 inch mark first. So on this 3.5 inch mark, take the opposite corner and line it right up at that line. Smash that down. And then you want to make sure that you have something that will burnish this well, because you want a crisp line. And it is cardstock, so it's not as easy as paper to get into a crisp line. So if you don't have a bone folder, you can use the side of a pen, you can use a spoon or a back end of a butter knife. But you want to get a really crisp line. All right, do that to the other side as well. Now we're going to do it to the other side first. We're going to line it up to the 8 inch mark, this one to the opposite 8 inch mark. And then we're going to line it up to the 5 inch mark, 5.5 inch mark rather. All right, and do that with the other one as well. Okay, so this is what you have. You have a larger panel with a triangle on 2 sides, 2 opposite diagonals, and those are the front and the back. And then you have a smaller set, and those are the flaps that will go over the box. So now we have to do some cutting so we can free up the flaps that'll be the side and create the box. There is a triangle on each of the sides, and we're going to get rid of that triangle. And you want to cut just on the opposite side because you want to cut that fold line off with the triangle. Okay, Do that for all 4 of these triangles. Okay, so this is what we have right now. What we want to do next is on the sides of these large ones, you'll see that 1 1/4 inch strip. We're going to free up these strips because they're going to become the sides of our box. So we want to make sure that we cut very neatly on this side of that score line because this is going to be our front or our back, and we want the sides of it to look neat. So just cut very neatly down that side. Okay, so this is the side of our front or back flap, and that's nice and straight. And you can just cut a sliver of this off just to cut that fold off to make that one look neat as well. And you can see I've not taken off very much at all, just a little sliver. All right, do that for the other 3 as well. Okay, so this is what we have right now. We have our flaps that are going to become the sides of the box. And we have this will be the front and the back. So the next thing I want to do is actually create that little fold line where I'm going to meet the front and the back panel up at. And to do that, all you need to do is to bring that point up to the score line and put it right on the center diagonal mark on that score line. And go ahead and burnish those as well. And do it on the other big one as well. Take a minute now and erase all your marks. If you want to do some focal stamping now, you can do some focal stamping, like if you want it just on the flap or on the front, you can do that. But if you want to emboss the front and the back, now is the time to do it. So how we're going to prepare our piece is we're going to take one of the sides and we'll turn it in and we'll fold that strip down. Now you can see that points out too much, so we can't fold this one back over, but we can fold it under so we don't blunt our points, and then just make sure that this piece is folded down, and that frees up this piece to be embossed. Okay, so this is our outside, and when we line up our embossing folder, we want to make sure that we have the side we want, whether it's embossing or debossing, on that folder. Let me grab my folder for a minute. All right, so I'm using a 6 by 6 inch folder, and I want the little lines sticking out, so I want this part to be in the front. And I'm going to line the bottom of that emboss, or the side, I guess, of that embossing folder right up on my score line. Now you'll notice the end of it sticks out a little bit. I'm doing a decorative treatment on the top, and even in the masculine ones I cut it short. So that doesn't bother me, but if you want to, or if you have a skinnier embossing folder, go ahead and just move that up and run it through again. Now, because we're putting it in sideways, you just want to make sure that your pattern is one that you like when you're putting your embossing folder in sideways. All right, let me run this through and I'll be right back. All right, so here's what it looks like, and I think that's rather pretty. So I'm going to do the back one as well. You don't have to if you don't want to, but when I turn it around, I just have to make sure I've got these points out of the way on both the top, on both the front and the back. And I'll go ahead and put my embossing folder back on and be right back. All right, so this is how it ends up looking. All right, so let's go ahead and put our box together. Turn it to the inside of the box, and we're going to glue these 2 sides together. And if you'll notice, as I bring them together, that blunt angle where it's cut is actually going to be right at the point where they come together. So when we put glue on them, we want to make sure we're putting glue on the end side of that. So I'm going to put glue on the inside of one of those and the outside of the other, because they're going to meet up like this. But you notice I do not go past that point where that blunt angle is. Okay, so go ahead and do the other side as well. Okay, now if you'll notice that because we don't have any tabs, we don't have any kind of security for the bottom. So I actually have 3 different liners, which I'm going to show you in a minute, which will prevent all your stuff from coming out of there. And of course the sides are going to be pulled up like this. After we close the top, the sides will be pulled up like this, and that will prevent things from coming out as well. All right, so let's go ahead and finish our box now. We put the liner in that we want. We put our stuff in, close it down, and then these two come over to meet, and you want to line them up right at that fold line that we created before. And that should be pretty good about lining the points up. Now on this one, if there's a little bit hanging over on this side, just go ahead and trim that. We'll go ahead and trim it off. And just angle it towards the bottom corner. All right, much better. See, we got it much better there. Now what I'm going to do is use a 1/4 inch handheld punch, and I'm just going to use this as a guide to how far I want to go in. So I'm going to put that in this far, right where that metal piece comes out of there from the side, and I'm going to rest it on the top of my box. So I know I'm right at the right spot each time. I'm going to punch it. I'm going to pull it back out, just a half of one of those circles, and then make a double punch. And what that does is when I put the skewer through, it decreases the stress that's on the box. So do the exact same thing to the other side. Okay. All right, and now on this one I'm going to do a decorative treatment. So while I've got my hands and I've got it together, let me go ahead and get my corner punch and punch a decorative treatment. Make sure I'm all the way in because I don't want to miss this one. All right, so that's what it looks like. I'm just going to put a skewer through here for just a moment and to hold the box together. I'm going to just take my fingers and I'm going to push this up and kind of push the front back. So I'm just molding this to go around the skewer so it stands up just a bit straighter. Okay. And how I get rid of the point is I just use a pair of heavy-duty kitchen scissors or a wire cutter, or I happen to have a jewelry cutter, and I'll just turn it and kind of pinch the skewer all around to make a clean end. And then when I get the pinched mark all the way around, I'll go ahead and cut it. And of course you can use a Sharpie marker on this one as well to color it, or whatever you have on hand that'll work. All right, so let's go ahead and make our 3 different liners. All right, for the simplest liner, we just need a piece of pattern paper that is 5 3/8 inches square. So it's 5 3/8 by 5 3/8. And all we're going to do is on opposite sides score it 1 inch. So we'll score at the 1 inch line on this side, we'll turn it around 180 degrees and score at the 1 inch on this side, 1 inch on that side. And how this one is going to fit is we just fold those 2 sides up. And let me bring my box back in here. We're just going to set it right down, and that will line the box nicely. And it's very simple to do. And if I glued it, I would just glue the bottom down. And then you can put anything you want to in it that it will fit. All right, let me do the second liner. For the second liner, we're going to use a piece of pattern paper that is 5 3/8 inch wide by 7 3/8 inch long. We're going to go ahead and score 1 inch on all 4 sides. And then we're going to create it just like we would a normal box, except we're going to glue the tabs to the outside because we want the inside to look neat. So let's go ahead and cut down. We have a long section and 2 1-inch squares on the rectangle side of that score line. Cut straight down. Do a slight notch into the square side and do a slight notch on this side. Do that for all 4 of the tabs. Okay, so we're going to fold in this way because I want the succulent floral pattern to be on the inside. All right, and then we're going to glue our tabs to the outside of the box. That way the inside will look nice and finished. So let's go ahead and glue those and we'll make the box. Okay, so this again, just take it in there and just set it right inside. If you wish to glue it, just go ahead and glue it right to the bottom. And it fits in there really nicely. Now the other one has a nice lining to it and it stops anything from sliding out the bottoms of the sides. But this one has a nice finished look and it takes just 1 or 2 extra score lines and just a few moments longer. Now if you want to do one where you're partitioning it for different things, then I'll show you my third liner. For this third liner, which includes a partition, so it's a little bit more complicated, but not that much. Go ahead and take a piece of pattern paper that is 5 3/8 by 9 3/8. So we're going to score it again at 1 inch on all 4 sides. So the next lines we score will be dependent on what it is you want to put in the box. So we're going to have a box bottom that is going to be 5.5 inches long and 3.5 inches wide. And these score lines kind of give an indication of what the end and the sides will look like. So what I do is I just take what I want to put in there and I'll make some tea, because this is going to my mother for Mother's Day. And I'll line it up there and give it a nice cushion against the side score line. And make sure it's within the top and the bottom score lines like this. And then what I'll do is I'll make a score line on this side to start my petition. Now I like the way it looks at the 4-inch score line. It gives me a nice little place for this, so I have a place for my tea bags to go. And then on the other side I plan on putting either some lemon lozenges or maybe some honey or some sugar or something like that. So what I'm going to do is you need 3 score lines that are 1 inch apart for the partition wall. So what I'll do is I'll start at the 4-inch line, because that will give me a nice partition for my tea. And I'm going to score at 4 inches, and then an inch at 5 inches, and then another inch at 6 inches. So you've got 1, 2, 3 score lines that are each an inch apart, and that will give you your partition wall. If you wanted a different size thing, say perhaps a couple spools of ribbon, which would fit in here nicely, just go ahead and make sure it's within that score line, within the top and bottom score lines, and then you start your scoring where this one would be your partition starting. So I would start my score line for this one at 4.5 to get my ribbons in there in a partition. So I do 4.5 and then 5.5 and then 6.5. And that would be my partition wall, because the way we're going to put our partition up will be the same no matter where you score it. The only thing that depends on where you score it is what you want to put into it. All right, so let me go ahead and fold and burnish my score lines. And remember, I'm going in like this because I want the succulent side to be on the inside. And this is the one I'm going to use for my mother's box. So this is the real thing. Mom, don't listen. Okay, so I'm going to fold in all of my 1-inch sides. All right, and then what I'm going to do is those 3 score lines, I'm going to fold the center one up, because that's going to be the top of my partition wall. All right, and go ahead and fold that one, and then fold the other 2 out. Like you're sandwiching that partition wall between it. And this is what you get. This is your partition wall. All right, so we'll treat the corners just like we did our last liner. So go ahead and cut on this rectangle side of the score line, straight up to that, and then notch in that little square. And do that for all 4 of the outside corners. Okay, now the difference for this one is we have 2 squares right where our partition is. For that center square, we just want to go ahead and notch slightly on both sides. So we're taking a wedge out. Same with the opposite. Okay, and then we prepare these 2 just like we did our corner notches. Go ahead and cut down the rectangle side of that score line and notch slightly into the square side, and do that for the rest of them. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to glue that partition wall together. Do not put glue on the tabs quite yet, because we're not ready to glue those together, just the center part of the partition. Okay, so this is what we have for the moment, and these guys are still free to move. I'm going to go ahead and glue my box together over here, and what we're going to do is pull that up and glue these to the outside, like that. So I'm going to put some glue on the outside, this side of this tab, and these sides of these tabs. All right, so go ahead and pull that up and pull these in. And then glue these to the outside of this one. All right, so that's one of our side partitions. Now we're going to do the exact same thing for the other side. Okay, so now we have our partition liner. Let me bring my box back. All right, again, I would just glue the bottom, but it should sit nicely in there and give you a nice partition for your box. So this is my real thing. This is the one I'm giving my mom. Mom, don't look. And I'll just go ahead and glue this in. All right. As you can see, my tea bags, because I measured it, will fit nicely in there. And on this side, I decided to put some Ghirardellis because they'll fit nicely in there. All right, so once you get it filled the way you want to, go ahead and close those down. Pull these up, put your skewer through, and I went ahead and just stained my skewer. So put that through like this. And I'm going to go ahead and tie some twine on there and decorate it, and I'll be right back. All right, so let me bring my other ones back in. So this is my project today, a very unique closure gift box. And it might take a little bit longer to do this project, but I think the results are really nice and they're well worth it. So if you like the video, please subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to be notified of new videos as I post them. For more information on this project or others I've done, please go to rejoiceandcreate.com. And as always, until we meet again, I hope your days are blessed. Bye!